The first thing is that these children are being raised in some type of freak show. It's like they are Michael Jackson's children who were paraded to the world but covered up in masks. Yeah, but then remember, he covered their identities and their faces in masks. So of course they're very likely to be messed up, growing up with such messed up parents who are using them in such a mucked up manner. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say on the titles is that I think what Prince William is acutely aware of, and this has certainly been my reporting, is that look at what happened when you allowed to run rampant for so many years, chasing the cash. Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media.
What if everything people thought they knew about Prince Harry's private life suddenly got flipped upside down? New claims are starting to surface, and now people everywhere are asking what's really going on behind the scenes with Archie and Lilibet. Angela Levin has stepped forward with details that are grabbing serious attention, and now people are connecting dots that didn't quite line up before. Sources are buzzing about how Harry is handling the pressure, with some saying the situation has him feeling tense as more questions keep stacking up. From unexpected revelations to rising public curiosity, this story is getting harder to ignore by the minute. So what is this really about? Are these just rumors getting out of control? Or is something bigger slowly coming into focus? The online conversation is heating up fast, with people debating what all of this could mean for Harry, Meghan, and their family moving forward. Right now, the details being discussed are turning heads and raising eyebrows in a major way. When Angela Levin appeared on that morning show, it seemed like just another routine segment at first, but something felt different right away. She looked calm and composed like always, but there was a certain energy in the room.
She hasn't had the children herself, or Harry hadn't been involved, then they can't be in the royal line. They have to have royal blood, those little ones, and without that, there's no chance of them becoming a member of the royal family.
This case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of
Princess Lilibet Diana had been christened. Why would they use a title for their children that represents an institution they loathe so much?
Like she came ready to shake things up. If you know Angela Levin, you already know she doesn't hold back. She's not the type to stay quiet just to keep things comfortable, and she doesn't soften her words just to avoid reactions. She asks the questions others avoid and points out things people hesitate to say out loud. And that's exactly why people pay attention to her. So when she started talking about Prince Harry, it didn't feel like the usual light conversation. She moved past the surface-level topics and went straight into areas that have stayed low profile for years, especially when it comes to Archie and Lilibet. You could feel the tension shift almost instantly. Viewers at home probably weren't expecting that kind of turn either. What started as a normal morning segment suddenly felt intense, like something serious was unfolding in real time. The mood changed fast, and suddenly, nobody was just casually watching anymore. People were locked in, eyes on the screen, fully focused on what was being said. Phones stopped scrolling, conversations paused, because this didn't sound like typical royal talk at all. This wasn't about fashion or casual appearances. This was about deeper questions tied to royal rules, traditions, and long-standing expectations that go back generations. And the way she said it made it hit even harder. Angela stayed calm the entire time, almost like it was just a regular conversation, but every point landed with weight.
She wants to do anything politically in America, which is on and off with her, isn't it? She can't do it with the title, so what's she worried about? Just drop out, but she won't, because she's so determined to get her own back. And that it needs someone strong like William who's going to absolutely push it through.
I absolutely agree.
Things were dealt with a bit more, you could call it aggressively, when it came to errant members of a royal family. You sent them off to war and hoped that war took care of the rest, sort of thing. And so I think in this sort of modern era, you do actually need some way to, discipline may sound like a harsh word, but to share with them, hey, you're part of this. You have to be a situation like Harry, because Harry and Meghan left in part because they thought they could just do whatever the heck they wanted.
No dramatic tone, no raised voice, just direct statements that made people stop and really think. Within minutes, everything started lighting up online. Clips spread quickly, reactions poured in, and people everywhere began analyzing every detail, trying to understand what it all could mean. Everyone watching had the same reaction. Did she really just say that? It felt like one of those moments you replay in your head because you're not even sure you heard it right the first time. Even the host sitting next to her looked slightly caught off guard, shifting in their seat like this wasn't how things were expected to go. But Angela Levin didn't pause or hesitate. She stayed steady and continued, like she knew exactly where she was going with it. And that's when things got even more interesting. She pointed out something most people never stop to think about: how royal births are usually handled. For generations, there's been a clear structure: official announcements, confirmations from medical professionals, public appearances, and carefully shared details. It's all part of a long-standing tradition connected to royal protocol and transparency. But when it came to Archie and Lilibet, she suggested that things didn't follow that same pattern. As she started explaining what was different, it became harder for people to ignore.
Crisis won't die down until the irrefutable truth comes out.
Harry and Meghan playing games that resulted in people unnecessarily questioning things. Again, every toxicity is a result of them.
A lot of the royal watchers were complaining that they felt like her posts on social media where she barely shows the kids is almost taunting the king, who doesn't know these children.
No photos outside hospital doors like people are used to seeing, no detailed medical statements or full breakdown of the birth process, and none of the usual formal updates that typically come with a royal arrival. Traditionally, everything is shared in a very structured and public way. The location, the timing, the professionals involved. It's all documented because of how important royal lineage and transparency have always been. But in this case, things were handled much more privately. Harry and Meghan chose to keep most details limited, and that's when people began noticing small things that didn't seem fully clear. Some timelines appeared unclear, certain details seemed to vary depending on the source, and a few images sparked discussions online. On their own, these details might not seem major, but when people started putting everything together, it stood out more. Royal watchers began comparing these births to others in recent years, and while past royal arrivals followed a consistent public pattern, this situation looked like a clear shift from that long-established approach. Angela Levin made her point very directly. She highlighted that based on what has been publicly shared, far fewer official details were released compared to previous royal births. Usually, there are multiple confirmations, structured updates, and clear documentation. But this time, everything appeared more limited and private, and that's when the questions really started growing. People began asking why this approach was so different. Why step away from traditions that had been followed so closely for so long? And just like that, what started as a simple morning show conversation turned into something much bigger, with more people paying attention than...
I just think she's too wonderful to be left out of it, and she will win because she'll go to court if she doesn't keep her title. I don't know, it's very hard. It's very hard to lose your title, but I do really hope that it's taken away. I mean, she's complained for over 6 years now what a terrible time she had. She was nearly wanted to kill herself. She didn't want to live. Then what trying to get back in there somewhere. Nobody wants her. She's not going to listen to anything she's been told. So you can't really put them into the Buckingham Palace and say, look, if you feel like doing any work, do it. And if you don't, because that's not going to be a way that Harry doesn't mind that, which is extraordinary. But it's not a way to do that. And I think if they're going to school and you leave them there with a title, Prince and Princess, they're going to get bullied.
Ever before. These weren't small changes at all. They felt like major shifts to a system people always believed was locked in place. And Angela Levin didn't keep things vague either. She went point by point, highlighting what seemed to be missing. The more she explained, the more people leaned in and started paying serious attention. First, she focused on the birth announcements, and that's where things really started catching people's eyes. Normally, official statements include every key detail: location, time, weight, all clearly laid out in a structured way. It's a process that's been followed for years without much variation. But when it came to Archie, things didn't follow that same pattern. The announcement came later than expected, and several of those standard details weren't included. That alone had people asking, why did this feel so different? Then came the timing, And this is where even more questions started building. Typically, the public is informed when a royal is admitted ahead of the birth, with updates following shortly after. But here, the news came after everything had already taken place, shared on a timeline that felt much more controlled and private. And it didn't stop there. Questions began popping up about the location, with different reports pointing to different places, but no clear confirmation to settle it. That kind of uncertainty isn't something people are used to when it comes to royal events. Even the timeline itself raised eyebrows. When people started comparing the details that were shared with how long certain journeys usually take, some began wondering if everything aligned as expected. And once that thought enters the conversation, it only adds more curiosity. It started to feel like one of those situations where the timing just doesn't fully match up. And when that happens, people naturally begin asking what might be missing. Then came the photos. And this added another layer to the conversation. Some images from Meghan's pregnancy caught attention because a few viewers felt certain things looked slightly unusual. Nothing confirmed, nothing official, just observations being shared online. But longtime royal watchers noticed differences compared to what they had seen before, and that only pushed the discussion even further. And when photos of Archie were finally released, they were limited and very carefully selected. That stood out right away, especially since people are used to more open and traditional photo moments when royal babies are introduced to the world. But what really kept the conversation going was the lack of follow-up. Normally, when questions start circulating, official clarifications come quickly to clear things up and settle the noise. But this time, there wasn't much additional information shared, and that silence left people guessing even more. So of course, the internet stepped in. People started analyzing timelines, revisiting earlier statements, and connecting every small detail they could find. Some believed there were simple explanations, like a clear choice for more privacy, which is completely understandable. But others began looking at more complex angles.
At all. Instead, the videos emboldened conspiracy theorists. They're calling it Megspiracy, and the pair are being subjected to yet more merciless ridicule.
That it just really kind of boggles the mind. I mean, just for titles, for example. So when Archie was first born, they said they didn't want him to have a title. He was going to be a private citizen. I was like, bravo, you understand. He's not going to be a working member of the royal family. He is going to have to live a normal life, get a normal job. That is fantastic. And then it came out later in the Oprah Winfrey interview. Well, they denied him a title and security because he is a mixed race child. And then it was kind of like
trying to figure out why everything felt so tightly controlled. Online discussions grew fast. Comment sections turned into full debates. And people everywhere were trying to piece everything together like a puzzle. No matter what side people were on, it all came back to one thing. There were gaps, missing details, unclear timelines, and unanswered questions that kept standing out again and again. And once those gaps are noticed, they're hard to ignore. As Angela Levin continued pointing out what seemed to be missing, more viewers went back and re-examined everything with fresh eyes. And for many, it didn't line up with what they had seen during other royal births in the past. So then the big question became, how did Prince Harry respond to all of this? Reports started suggesting that he was under serious pressure as the story spread quickly across different platforms. Instead of addressing every question publicly, it appeared the focus shifted toward handling things behind the scenes while the conversation kept growing louder. Soon, reports described rising tension, phones ringing nonstop, urgent meetings taking place, and people trying to keep up with how fast everything was unfolding. It created the feeling that everything was moving at once, fast, intense, and hard to slow down. And when reactions seem that strong, it naturally leads people to ask even more questions. If everything is straightforward, why not address it calmly and move forward? That's what many observers began wondering.
Fascinating reporting coming from News Nation, the US news channel, and its head of entertainment, Paula Frolic, who reveals Prince William to change the monarchy forever.
With either Archie or Lily, and it needs to happen. They need to prove that those children, Meghan and Harry, are not entitled to privacy in this matter. And their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this.
What stood out even more was how different this response felt compared to the past. Prince Harry has always been seen as someone who can handle pressure, especially after years of constant public attention. But this time, the reaction appeared more tense And that caught people off guard. The reaction itself quickly became part of the story. Social media filled up fast with commentary, reactions, and debates about what was really happening behind the scenes. Even people who usually supported him started questioning why everything felt so intense this time. Before long, the focus shifted completely. It wasn't just about what was said during that broadcast anymore. It was about how everything was being handled afterward. And that shift only made the situation grow even bigger. Some reports described him as overwhelmed, saying he was personally making calls and trying to manage how everything was being discussed. Others claimed the situation started to feel more chaotic. The more responses were attempted, which only added to the pressure building around him. People close to the situation were said to be trying to bring structure and calm things down. But from the outside, it didn't seem easy to slow the momentum at all. And that kind of reaction only made people more curious. It all comes down to perception. When someone reacts strongly to questions, people naturally start wondering what's behind it. And the contrast here stood out clearly.
Sussex, no longer HRH, was safely delivered of a son, and she and her child are both doing well. So back to the tradition of putting out a framed bulletin or a gilded easel outside Buckingham Palace after royal births has been going on since 1837, so it's a cool tradition. And George, Charlotte, and Louis' easels listed the doctors' names with signatures, birth weight and time, and referenced the royal family.
Well, Harry and Meghan have never provided any evidence for that highly.
On one side, Angela Levin appeared calm and steady, simply sharing her perspective. While on the other side, the response seemed far more intense and pressured. Online reactions didn't hold back either. Many questioned why things seemed so heated, while others debated what it could all mean. Even longtime supporters found themselves unsure as the situation kept growing into something much bigger than expected. Late-night shows in the US started making jokes about it. British tabloids picked it up quickly, and online commentators began breaking down every reported detail piece by piece. What could have been a simple clarification turned into a full spotlight moment, with Prince Harry right at the center of it all. But at the same time, something else stood out, and people noticed it fast. Meghan remained completely silent. No public statements, no appearances, no updates, nothing at all. For someone known for being very intentional about public image, that silence caught a lot of attention right away. Harry and Meghan have always presented themselves as a united front, carefully aligned in what they share publicly. But this time, that dynamic seemed different. While reports suggested Harry was actively trying to manage the situation, Meghan stayed entirely out of view. And that contrast didn't go unnoticed. Observers quickly started pointing out how unusual it felt to see one side highly visible under pressure, while the other stayed completely quiet. That contrast didn't just stand out, it added a whole new layer to the story and had people wondering what might really be happening behind the scenes.
The result of the bizarre conduct of a cheap hustler and her dope of a husband is entirely unnecessary and should be cleared up. There is no justifiable reason why the British public should have to put up with a doubtful situation when it has been generally accepted practice since 1688 that all royal births should be publicly attested so that there can be no question as to the entitlement of an infant to his or her place in the line of succession.
Meghan's Netflix series, released to the world this morning, is packed with, well, not really revelations, are they? It's sort of rehashed old revelations with a new twist. As it turns out, we've apparently been wrong all along. Britain is a nasty, racist hellhole where only magnificent Meghan stood up.
Social media picked up on it almost instantly. It didn't take long before Where's Meghan started trending, with users everywhere asking the same thing. Why wasn't she speaking up? Why wasn't she standing next to Harry during all of this? The silence itself became the headline. Timelines filled up fast. Some posts showed Harry looking stressed. Others joked about him handling everything solo, while Meghan stayed completely off the radar. The conversation was moving fast, and everyone had something to say. Opinions split quickly. Some people believed staying quiet was the smartest move, keeping a low profile and not adding more fuel to the situation. From that angle, it looked like a calculated decision, but others saw it very differently. To them, it looked like Harry was left to handle everything alone, dealing with all the pressure, while Meghan stayed in the background. And that contrast kept pushing the discussion further. For a couple known for presenting a strong, united image, this moment felt different. One side was highly visible and under pressure, while the other remained completely absent. And that shift had people asking the same question again and again. What is really going on here? This time, it felt like Harry was carrying everything on his own, while Meghan's absence only made people question things even more.
Okay, well, we have to come out and show the baby in some way, but we're not coming out to the street. The filthy masses are not going to have anything to do with our kid. So then they show up, and there's Meghan in her white dress with Harry, and he's holding this completely still baby.
Yeah, nobody set out to destroy you. You destroyed yourselves in this country with your ludicrous, hypocritical behaviour. The truth be told, what she just said is complete and utter garbage by the British media, the public, and the royal family that they've all now abandoned. That's the
Royal commentators quickly stepped in with their takes. Some described her silence as strategic, while others saw it as distant. But everyone agreed on one thing: it was impossible to ignore. When someone so visible suddenly steps back, people are going to talk. And the longer that silence continued, the louder the speculation became. Was she stepping back on purpose, waiting for things to settle? Or was there a difference behind the scenes about how to handle it? No one had clear answers, and that uncertainty made everything feel even more intense. Even observers close to the situation started noticing a shift. The usual coordination and teamwork people expected just didn't seem as visible this time. It felt like something had changed, and that grabbed attention fast. They built their public image on being aligned, moving together, showing unity at all times. But now, that image didn't feel as solid. With everything unfolding at once, the contrast between Harry's visibility and Meghan's silence made the situation feel even bigger. Harry was out there, clearly under pressure, while Meghan remained completely quiet. And no matter how you look at it, that contrast raised a lot of questions. At the same time, Angela Levin's approach was getting just as much attention, maybe even more. She didn't come in loud or overly dramatic. She stayed calm, focused, and very precise in how she spoke.
Covering their backs. There's just too many unknowns. And then, of course, we have that the doctor that allegedly delivered Lily quit her practice 2 weeks after giving birth to Lily or delivering Lily. That sentence there is missing.
California Birth Index, and per the website at thecaliforniabirthindex.org, the California Birth Index, or CABI, is a database that stores records of births in California for tracks of birth certificates. Putting her full official name of Rachel Meghan Markle, you can see that the official...
And somehow, that made everything land even harder. Because when someone is loud, it's easy to tune it out. But when someone speaks calmly, lays things out step by step, and asks direct questions, it hits differently. It makes people stop and actually think. Levin's style was simple, but very effective. She pointed to what was already public, highlighted what seemed missing, and let viewers come to their own conclusions. No over-the-top delivery, no dramatic reactions, just steady observations that got people talking. And that made it harder for others to push back. Instead of telling people what to believe, she gave them pieces to look at themselves, and that kept the conversation moving even stronger. Angela Levin didn't just appear once and disappear either. She kept coming back. Each time, she stayed steady, consistent, and calm, adding small details while keeping the same tone. No drama, no raised voice, just the same questions, delivered the same way. And that consistency started building serious momentum. Now here's where things really shifted. Every time Harry tried to push back or calm the conversation, it seemed to bring even more attention to it. His reactions became part of the story itself. What could have faded quickly turned into something ongoing, something people kept coming back to, again and again. Each visible sign of frustration made people even more curious about what Levin had been pointing out from the start.
Less of a chance for a degenerate like Prince Andrew, now called Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to slip through. Which means, as I previously reported, Harry and Meghan will lose their titles, as well as Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. Even if Harry and Meghan right now are earning their own money, that well is drying up. You've got to take the ability for them to damage the royal family in the future away, and you've got to do that now. You've got to do it.
And that contrast became impossible to ignore. On one side, Levin appeared completely unbothered, calmly repeating her points. On the other side, reports described Harry as under pressure, reacting strongly as everything unfolded. Social media picked up on that difference instantly. Comparisons spread everywhere. calm versus reaction, and people couldn't stop talking about it. Levin's steady approach made her seem more credible to many viewers, while Harry's handling of the situation brought even more attention his way. Because when one person stays calm and the other seems overwhelmed, people naturally begin forming their own opinions. That contrast became a major part of the story. Every time Angela Levin appeared, clips spread fast. Huge views, constant shares, and people tuning in just to see if she would add more. It created a cycle where attention kept growing instead of slowing down. And what made it stand out even more was how simple her approach stayed. She didn't rely on dramatic delivery or bold claims. She focused on what was already public and pointed out what seemed unclear. Letting people connect the dots themselves made it even more powerful. Meanwhile, the response from Harry appeared to move in the opposite direction. The more visible the pressure seemed, the more the conversation grew, and the bigger the story became. By that point, it wasn't just about the original topic anymore. Everything had shifted into something much bigger. Perception. Levin came across calm, steady, and completely in control, while Harry's reaction seemed to raise even more questions and attention at the same time. And then things went even further. What started as one TV segment didn't just stay there. It turned into a full global media storm that kept expanding every single hour. Coverage spread everywhere, and the spotlight only got brighter. American morning shows jumped in almost immediately, running full segments, breaking everything down step by step, analyzing every word and every reaction. Clips of Angela Levin were replayed again and again, with hosts pausing, rewinding, and discussing each detail like it was a major moment unfolding in real time. This wasn't just casual viewing anymore. This had become headline-level coverage that people couldn't ignore. In the UK, tabloids went into overdrive, pushing the story nonstop with bold headlines, constant updates, and fresh angles that kept pulling people back in. Every small detail turned into a new talking point, and the story stayed right at the front of public attention. The shift in perception felt immediate. One moment, Harry was seen in a familiar light, and the next, he was right in the center of a worldwide conversation filled with debates, reactions, and strong opinions from every direction. Late-night shows didn't hold back either. Comedians built entire segments around the situation, highlighting the contrast between Levin's calm delivery and the intensity of the reactions being discussed. They turned it into something people laughed about, but at the same time, they kept the spotlight locked right where it was. And online, it exploded even more. Reaction videos, deep breakdowns, discussion threads, the conversation didn't stop for a second. Creators jumped in fast, replaying clips, analyzing timelines, pointing out details, and sharing their own takes that reached massive audiences within hours. Some slowed the footage down, others zoomed in on specific moments, all trying to piece together what it could mean. What started as one broadcast had now turned into a viral wave that just kept building. Those clips spread at lightning speed, paired with shocked reactions, pulling in huge numbers and constant engagement across every platform. And just like that, it became a nonstop content cycle that refused to slow down. Even people who never followed royal news found themselves pulled into it. Viewers who didn't usually care about titles, traditions, or royal structure were suddenly watching updates, trying to understand what exactly was happening and why it felt so big. It had fully crossed into mainstream attention. Comment sections filled up fast, with people sharing opinions, changing views, and reacting in real time. Some said they used to support Harry, but now found themselves questioning how everything was being handled. Others kept asking the same thing. Why wasn't this being addressed more directly? And instead of calming down, the momentum kept building. Every reported move turned into more content, more reactions, more analysis that kept the story alive and growing. The comparisons between Levin and Harry were everywhere. Side-by-side clips, breakdown videos, reaction threads, all pointing to the same contrast over and over again. And people couldn't stop talking about it. TV panels, online creators, global audiences, everyone had something to say and everyone wanted to be part of the conversation. This had become one of those stories that just wouldn't fade. It had everything: mystery, strong reactions, unanswered questions, and a sense that something bigger might be behind it all. And that combination kept people locked in. At this point, Harry had become the center of attention online, and not in a positive way. Every news cycle brought new coverage, new reactions, and more analysis that kept everything moving forward without pause. What started as a single TV appearance had now turned into a global moment that reached far beyond its original audience. It was everywhere: television, social media, discussion forums, and even platforms that don't usually focus on royal topics. The situation had grown far beyond a simple media conversation. And then things took another serious turn. Angela Levin shifted the focus once again, this time pointing toward how these unanswered questions and missing details could connect to Archie and Lilibet's position within the royal structure. That instantly raised the stakes. Now, it wasn't just about curiosity or media attention. It touched on long-standing traditions and how information around royal family members has historically been handled. Because when it comes to royal lineage, clarity has always been a key part of the system. Public records, established procedures, and structured communication have always played a major role in keeping everything transparent. And once that angle entered the conversation, it opened the door to even more questions than before. People started looking at everything again, this time through a different lens. Why were certain details limited? Why did the process appear different compared to what had been seen for years? And what does that shift really mean? When something feels different, people notice quickly. And once this perspective became part of the discussion, everything intensified even more. What started as simple questions suddenly felt like it could carry much bigger implications than anyone expected. And that's when the conversation reached another level. Because now it wasn't just about one interview or one moment, it had turned into an ongoing discussion that people kept returning to. Every new mention, every new clip, every new reaction added another layer. And the attention didn't fade. If anything, it kept growing. Because people weren't just watching anymore, they were analyzing, debating, and forming their own conclusions. Some believed everything had simple explanations that just hadn't been fully communicated. Others felt like there were still too many gaps that hadn't been addressed clearly. And that divide kept the conversation alive. At the center of it all, one thing stood out more than anything else: Angela Levin's approach. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't try to dominate the moment. She didn't rely on dramatic delivery. She stayed calm, steady, and focused, simply asking questions and pointing out what was already visible. And somehow, that approach made everything hit even harder. Because when someone stays calm while discussing something that feels serious, it draws people in. It makes them listen more closely. It makes them think, and it makes them question things they might not have noticed before. That's exactly what happened here. Her delivery stayed the same every time she appeared. Consistent, measured, and controlled. And that consistency built trust with viewers who kept coming back to hear more. Meanwhile, the response coming from Harry appeared to move in the opposite direction. The more visible the pressure seemed, the more the conversation grew. The more reactions were noticed, the more attention it brought. And that contrast became one of the biggest parts of the story. Calm versus pressure. Steady versus reactive. And once that comparison took hold, it was everywhere. People replayed it, discussed it, and debated it from every angle. And that's what kept the story from slowing down. Because it wasn't just about the details anymore. It was about how everything looked. Perception became the driving force, and perception spreads fast. Now the spotlight wasn't just on what was said, it was on how everything was handled afterward. Every move, every reaction, every moment became part of the bigger picture. And that's why the attention didn't fade. It stayed strong. And in many ways, it grew even stronger. Because once a story reaches that level, it becomes bigger than any single moment. It becomes something people keep coming back to. And that's exactly what happened here. So now it all comes down to you. Do you think Angela Levin was simply pointing out what was already visible? Or do you think she pushed things a step too far this time? Why do you think her calm approach hit so much harder than anything else people have seen before? Do you believe the questions she raised deserved clear answers? Or is this situation being pushed beyond what it really is? And most importantly, why do you think this moment sparked such a massive reaction across the world? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who needs to see it. See you in the next one.